Hello, greetings. My name is Tamfomi Ike. I come from Lu Village. Lu Village is situated on the western flank of Ndu Subdivision, of Donga Mantum Division, of Northwest Region in the Republic of Cameroon. I am here to discuss a topic that is crucial to life within Mbum villages, and this concerns traditional governance. This is a discussion that I am bringing so that we may be able to talk about how our villages are governed by traditional authorities. I am usually very excited to bring up new discussions concerning life as it obtains within the culture of the Mbum tribe. So I'm equally excited with this one to engage you in thought so that you will be able to reason with me and with others concerning the subject. So in this segment, why is it important that we talk about governance? Is because we need to know how our rulers operate a village, because also there is a conflict between the civil administrative governance as opposed or compared to or complemented by village traditional governance. So we are going to look at this in a way that will liberate our understanding concerning how life is being lived in our villages. Having introduced myself, I will be delving into the topic of the discussion. The topic of the discussion is traditional governance in Mbum perspective. So there is a particular worldview, there's a particular culture, there are traditions within the culture of the Mbum people, and traditional governance must also be observed or must also be viewed in terms of um, these other aspects of our culture. Now, if we need to understand traditional governance, we will have to talk about it. And we will have to also rediscover or discover that traditional governance is based on cultural and traditional norms. Unlike civil administration, this is a little different based on cultural and traditional norms. So we will be discussing the topic going forward. Topic, having introduced the topic in the foreground slide, this slide concerns the three spheres of traditional governance, which means there are three spheres of traditional governance. Why I represent them as spheres is because I want it conceived as spheres of influence rather than what some civil government structures will be referred to as branches of government. So I want it as spheres of influence, spheres of influence. So the three spheres of traditional governance, number one is the traditional administration. The traditional administration is under the fund or the chief of a village, and that is the royalty. It is also otherwise referred to as the executive sphere. The second sphere is the Ngwarong. The Ngwarong is referred to as quick fun in other languages of the Chikare-related tribe. Um, the Ngwarong is of the secret society, is one of the most powerful of the secret society, but its role in governance is very strategic, very essential. It is also otherwise known as the legislative sphere. The third sphere is the village council or the people. The village council is the people's representative body, and it is a place where all the sections of a village, all the families of a village are represented, and then they are engaged in decision making in the village life. It is also otherwise referred to as the judiciary sphere. So we have these three spheres of influences or spheres of traditional governance: the traditional administration, the Ngwarong, uh, and the village council. These are the three main spheres that constitute village governance in its completeness. So we will be discussing these three spheres following in the next slides. So we are beginning here with the traditional administration that is under the fund or the chief of a village. The chief of a village. That's the executive, and he is the topmost person in the village administration. And so uh, there are characteristics that we need to know concerning the office of the traditional administration or the chief or the fund so that we can understand how the whole issue of administration operates. The first characteristic is that it is an institution. It is not a person. It is an institution. It's not a person. So that will also it also informs you why the uh, the fund or the chief of a village is known by the village name Tamfonkwi village, Tamfonkwi Lo, Tamfonkwi Ndung, Tamfonkwi Mbor, um, Tamfonkwi Wat. Is not called by his simple and ordinary name. So it is an institution. It exists and functions forever. It means that uh, the institution will remain. It exists and functions forever. Once it comes into being, it will continue to exist and function as long as people of that village exist. It is supreme. It means that the traditional administration reserves the whole authority in matters of administration of the entire village. Life in the village is under the control of the fund. It is patriarchal. This means that um, only the males from within the royal family assume the position of the fund or the chief of a village. The female is a support to the fund. The female is known as the queen mother or the Maya. So she supports the patriarch, who is the father of the village. It is spiritually empowered. It is spiritually empowered. It means it is divinely ordained Okay, and then it is also sustained by ancestral spiritual powers. Justice is ensured by the unknown. This concept uh, uh, presents that the fund doesn't know everything concerning his very office of administration. This will guide him not to enter into excesses because he doesn't know what, when, and how something can befall him. So he keeps himself in check by the notion that there is something that he doesn't completely know. So this is traditional administration and its characteristic. This is the second sphere of influence, the second sphere of influence of traditional governance. It is the Ngwarong. Before I go on to discuss the Ngwarong, the picture that appeared on the slide, on the previous slide, is the picture of the Fon of Ngarum, a village in uh, Mbum land. Okay, now let me present the characteristics of the Ngwarong so that if you understand it, because the Ngwarong is very strategic in governance, so we have also viewed that it is of the secret society. So let's present the characteristic. It is an institution, which means it is not a person. It is not a person. Okay? The Ngwarong masquerades itself. It is not a person. The Ngwarong is a full institution in itself, in its structure, in all its actions. It exists and functions forever. Once the Ngwarong is instituted, we call in Limbum, when you grew the Ngwarong, when you initiate the Ngwarong, it does not die. It continues to exist and functions forever. It is a secret society entailing that it is being driven by divine spiritual power and ancestral interventions. Now, it functions on the basis of truth and justice. We have heard within our community, the Mbum people, that the Ngwarong prides itself on as the arbiter of truth. It prides itself as the upholder of truth and justice. It functions under an over-royalty in her oversight role. So at some point in time within the society, you find the Ngwarong being under the supreme commander who is the Fon. At another particular part of life, you see the Ngwarong overseeing the royalty. So Ngwarong is very fluid in terms of power. Okay. It is guided by fear of the unknown. It means that nobody in the Ngwarong doesn't know a lot about itself. So any persons that are engaged in Ngwarong activities are also guided by the fact that they they do not know everything, and so therefore they should keep themselves in check just in case, so that um, somebody should not fall into some excesses that will lead into trouble. So this is the Marong as a sphere of influence. So in this slide, we are discussing the village council is the council of the people, is the people. The village council as a sphere of traditional governance. It is an institution. That's one of the characteristics. It is an institution, meaning that it is not a person. It is not one person. So it is an institution. And it is the people's representatives. It is a body that is instituted by selecting delegates from constituent families of a village, and they come together so that they may take decision, engage, participate in the village life. Its decision is ratified by the fund. It means that even though it is a decision-making body, its decision cannot just go forward unless the fund endorses or gives consent. So it will continue to function as a decision body. Its decisions are enforced by the Ngwarong, meaning they can take decisions in the village council, and the Ngwarong will help to enforce the decisions of the village council. It can be dissolved and reassembled. It means that at any time, it can go off. You can dissolve it and reassemble it at any time. If the traditional administration deems necessary that the village council um, will not operate the way it is supposed to operate, the traditional administration may um, dissolve and reassemble the village council. In this picture this picture is one of the many people under Wikuda. It is an enlarged exco that took place in Bafusam of Wikuda. We can see the Wikuda president there and other presidents of local Wikuda branches. In this slide, I want to show the relationship. I want us to see the relationship between the three spheres as illustrated. There's a traditional administration which has the, which is represented by the yellow sphere, and the Ngwarong, which is represented by the green sphere, and the village council is represented by the blue sphere. There are certain letters in the intersections that we will take note of. There's a relationship between traditional administration and village council in A. There's a relationship between traditional administration and Ngwarong in B, and there's a relationship between the village council and the Ngwarong in C. There is also a relationship of the overall spheres of life in D. So we will be considering a description of all these relationships so that we are able to know exactly how all of the spheres interact and how they relate to function. In this slide, we are considering the relationship between the traditional administration and the village council. The traditional administration has the function to uphold and promote traditional norms, while the village council, known as the judiciary, interprets, educates, and adjudicates on traditional norms. And there is a particular intersection at A where the village council and the traditional administration relate. At that particular point A, there is an oversight, is a relationship of oversight on each other. The traditional council, the traditional administration oversees the village council so that it functions properly. On the other hand, the village council also oversees the traditional administration so that it functions properly. For example, the traditional administration makes sure that decisions that are taken in the village council are taken properly, and then they give consent. The fund of traditional administration gives consent to those decisions before they are executed. Now, the village council also checks on the traditional administration in their role to uphold, promote, and traditional norms. So the village council also oversees the traditional administration so that they can function properly, so that the traditional administration, the executive branch, can function properly. Okay, so this is a relationship of oversight between the traditional administration and the village council. So let's proceed to the other relationship. On this slide, we have the relationship between traditional and administration and the Ngwarong. The traditional administration upholds and promotes traditional norms. The Ngwarong identifies, enforces, and protects traditional norms. But these two are related at a certain portion of life in the community are represented by B. At this particular portion of life in the community, there is the role of oversight. The traditional administration oversees the Ngwarong because the traditional administration is the supreme custodian of all secret societies. So it oversees the Ngwarong, it protects it, it gives it, it makes sure that it does the role that it's supposed to play in the society. The Ngwarong on the other side, on the other hand, the Ngwarong also has an oversight over traditional administration. It checks traditional administration for excesses. It can sanction the traditional administration in cases of taboo. So it can sanction a traditional administrator. So the Ngwarong also reserves that authority to do that. So in that oversight role, traditional administration is overseeing the Ngwarong, and then at the same time, the Ngwarong is overseeing traditional administration, keeping each other in check so that village life can move on smoothly and appropriately. On this slide, there's the relationship between Ngwarong and the village council. So the village council interprets, educates, and adjudicates on traditional norms, while the Ngwarong identifies, enforces, and protects traditional norms. But these two are also related in their oversight role at a certain sphere in the village life are represented by point C. In this sphere of life, the village oversees the Ngwarong, the village council oversees the Ngwarong, so that the Ngwarong too doesn't go into excesses. And so the Ngwarong also oversees the village council so that the village council stays within its own parameters of rule. So, for example, if Ngwarong goes and destroys somebody's property, okay, if Ngwarong goes and destroys somebody's property, or if something happens, somebody can report to the village council, and the village council will be able to intervene and see why the Ngwarong did it and try to reach a solution in such a conflict. The Ngwarong will also oversee the village council. For example, the Ngwarong can at any time propose the dissolution of the village council if it's not functioning properly, and the Ngwarong also enforces the decisions of the village council. So those are some few examples on how Ngwarong and village council relate in the village life. That keeps the village life going properly. Slide. In this slide, I want us to look at the three spheres related together so that we may see what how such life obtains in the village. Okay, so there is the relationship between traditional administration, the Ngwarong, and the village council. So we already have seen that the traditional administration has the role to uphold and promote traditional norms. The village council has the role to interpret, educate, adjudicate on traditional norms. We also have seen that the Ngwarong has as a role to identify, enforce, and protect traditional norms. But these three are all related in a particular sphere of life of the village at a certain point D. At this point D, there is a hierarchical relationship. There is a hierarchical relationship. In most of the Chikari tribes, when you ask them which sphere of village governance is the most powerful and the greatest, they will always point to, they will always discuss life in this sphere. They will always discuss life at B because they will tell you the quick fund is the greatest. The quick fund is the most powerful. The quick fund is the topmost of all the spheres of influences. Now, that sphere in G, that particular relationship of the three, is just a very tiny portion of the entire village life. So we usually quickly jump to conclude that the Ngwarong is the topmost, most powerful, just because we have an experience uh, concerning life at D, at the sphere of influence at D. So we will be discussing D in particular in the next slide so that we see exactly that hierarchical relationship between the three. We already understand that the traditional administration is the executive, and the village council is the judiciary, and the Ngwarong is the legislative. But they are related. All the three are related in a particular sphere of village life at point D. So in this slide, we want to um, consider the hierarchical community life. The hierarchical community life. Again, I have noted that this is a very small portion of sphere of influence in the life of a community, of a Mbum village. So in this particular relationship place, there is a hierarchical community life. The Ngwarong is at the top. Yes, the Ngwarong is at the top. Why? Because the Ngwarong as an institution oversees the traditional administration and the village council. The Ngwarong can order, the Ngwarong can dissolve, the Ngwarong can exile, the Ngwarong can dethrone the traditional administration. The Ngwarong can dissolve the village council. So the Ngwarong is a part, the sphere of life is a part that of in this particular portion of life in the village, the Ngwarong is at the top. The traditional administration is next, and then the village council is at the bottom. So life as it obtains in the relationship between the Ngwarong, the traditional administration, and the village council is a small portion of the life in the village, but it is one of the most strategic portions of the village life, which should be taken seriously. So we'll be looking at the next consideration, the next slide. Now, this next slide is considering a question that people should be asking at this stage. According to the theory that I have presented, I have not considered other groups of the village on how they are related to traditional governance. So somebody should be questioning how and how are they related to traditional governance, especially the Kuda group. So I asked the question, what is the place of the Kuda groups in traditional governance? The Kuda groups, I mean the Cultural and Development Association groups, and even other groups. So I'm considering the Kuda groups as the overarching group of other groups. So let's see. According to the theory of Mbum, this theory of Mbum traditional governance, there are two questions. Question number one, to clarify things, is what is the relationship between a village development and cultural association and traditional administration? So we will be answering that question right away. We say that it is a traditional administration tool for development and the preservation, strengthening, and promotion of tradition and culture. By this I mean that the Village Cultural and Development Association is a traditional administration tool for development and the preservation and strengthening and promotion of tradition and culture. Okay? So, the Village Development and Cultural Association works under and in collaboration with traditional administration. Okay, so let me repeat this again. The Village Development and Cultural Association works under and in collaboration with traditional administration. So it is supposed to be. All other village development and cultural groups are under the Village Development and Cultural Association. Okay, which is very strategic. It means that the Village Development and Cultural Association oversees all other groups of the village. Okay, that is great. Now, question two will be, what is therefore the relationship between WIFO and WICUDA? Okay, so now, for some who do not know what I mean by WIFO and WICUDA, WIFO stands for Mbum Funds Union. Mbum Funds Union is a union of all traditional administrators, all village traditional administrators of all villages. Those administrators are called funds, chiefs of the village. They have constituted themselves in a union and they call it WIFO, Mbum Funds Union. And WICUDA is the Mbum Cultural and Development Association. I think many people already know about WICUDA. WIFO has come of recent, but WICUDA has long been in existence. So we need therefore to look at this relationship. What is therefore the relationship between WIFO and WICUDA? That's the question. In light of the answer to question one, WICUDA is WIFO's tool for development and preservation, strengthening, promotion of Mbum traditions and culture. Okay, so WIFO is WICUDA is WIFO's tool for development, since WIFO is the administration. Okay, is WIFO's tool for development, preservation, strengthening, promotion of Mbum traditions and culture. Now, this is my understanding, which means you may have other theories that come up to distance themselves from this understanding. But I see this as the simplest, well understood relationship. WICUDA works under and in collaboration with WIFO. Okay, WUKUDA works under and in collaboration with WIFO. Now, this is again something that I'm delving in, which may be very pungent to or irritating to other people. Just to say that WIKUDA works under and in collaboration with WIFO is a very powerful statement. So WIKUDA works under and in collaboration with WIFO. I am saying that they are supposed to work under and in collaboration with WIFO. Okay. All other WIKUDA associated groups are under WIKUDA. Okay. All other WIKUDA associated groups are under WIKUDA. Okay. This means that any groups that have pledged their allegiance under WIKUDA are under WIKUDA. And then WIKUDA is under WIFO. Okay? Which means WIKUDA has responsibility over groups that are related to WIKUDA, are associated to WIKUDA. All right? So WIKUDA has her own relationship with groups that are associated to her. Okay? So all other WIKUDA associated groups are under WIKUDA. Now, having discussed these relationships is very important. It's very important to note that the three spheres of a village of village governance, these three spheres collaborate with each other so that governance in a village could obtain or could go on smoothly. So I will be ending here. I believe you have heard, you've seen the slides, you can use them. I believe that you probably may not have learned a new thing, but it is available as something that you could teach others or you could make others learn from. Thank you so much, and God bless you.